After questions were raised about the approvals given to India's indigenous shot Covaxin, its maker Bharat Biotech has hit back. And how? Dr. Krishna Ella, the chairman and managing director of the company, made an emotional defense of his vaccine, saying his company was being targeted because it was an Indian pharmaceutical company. He also took on his competition, the Serum Institute's Covishield, for being granted approval on the basis of UK data.
The official approval given to Covaxin by India's drug regulators has raised eyebrows in scientific circles. This is because phase 3 trials of the Bharat Biotech candidate is still underway, and experts feel that it could be risky in the absence of efficacy data. Even as the issue took on political tones, Biotech's founder addressed the media on Monday to defend the vaccine being developed in his labs.
And all these documents, CTR, it's there in the public domain. All our clinical protocol is in the public domain. It's nothing secret. We call CTD, registry. We register every clinical trial.
And the publication is on medArchive.
And medArchive is the publication is already there. You look at that publication.
An emotional Krishna Ella said the approval was a great milestone in India's scientific capability, and it was unfair to question his company's credential in the vaccine field.
Many people just talking about gossiping, everything in a different direction to just backlash on the Indian companies. That is not right for us. We don't deserve that. It is allowed. People are not just, I don't know why Indian companies always targeted by everybody in the world.
Covaxin has been indigenously developed by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research.
We have isolated the virus, we gave the virus to Bharat Biotech, they developed the vaccines, we did the hamster studies, followed up to day 65, we did the monkey challenge studies, we did the phase 1, followed up to 104 days phase 2 studies with more than 98% immunogenicity with this drug, with more than 22,000 now in phase 3, with tremendous safety established.
The subject expert committee consists of...
But the DCGI's approval along with Covishield has raised concerns. The expert opinion is that data needs to be analyzed once the phase 3 trials of Covaxin are over. It's in phase 3 that the data on efficacy is analyzed, hence the worry. Vaccine experts feel bypassing certain guidelines would be jeopardizing a system which has been created and has evolved to protect individuals. Transparency in data helps those who receive the vaccine to make informed decisions. The government and the drugs regulator, DCGI, have dismissed any concerns on Covaxin. The vaccine is all set to be administered on those between the age of 12 and 18. With inputs from Pankaj Upadhyay, Bureau Report, India Today.
Did India's drug regulators push through the approvals for Covaxin, the Bharat Biotech vaccine, in what can be called a scientifically robust fashion? Or was this rushed through unnecessarily? Should this process of granting emergency use approval have been delayed till the results of the phase 3 trials actually came in? There's very sharp opinion on both sides of this vaccine debate. Joining me on this broadcast, I want to welcome first and foremost Dr. Sambit Patra, who I hope will be here partly in his capacity as a qualified medical practitioner, apart from being the spokesperson of the BJP. Squaring off against him is S. Srinivasan. He's the co-convener of the All India Drug Action Network. They've come out with a statement questioning the manner in which the vaccine was granted approval. We've got Dr. Sandeep Buddhiraja. He's the Group Medical Director of Max Healthcare and a Senior Director at the Institute of Internal Medicine. He agrees largely with the government's approach. Lastly, I have Dr. Aviral Vatsa. He's a general physician, works with the National Health Services in Scotland, has put out a whole series of tweets lambasting the government's approach and questioning the manner in which the vaccine was granted approval. I want to go across first to Dr. Vatsa to set up this debate. Can you lay out for Dr. Patra and for our viewers your concerns? And which is why I haven't got a Samajwadi Party or a Congress spokesperson on this broadcast, because I'm hoping to stick to the science, to stick to data, and to stick to the robustness of the review process and the regulatory process. So Dr. Vatsa, welcome. Lay out why you believe Indian authorities have erred in the manner in which the Bharat Biotech vaccine Covaxin has been granted emergency use approval. Dr. Vatsa.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Rahul, for having me here. At the outset, let me tell very openly that I would be the first person to be really proud of the fact that a vaccine is coming out of Indian research. And my concerns, and also I would also like to add that all the things which has been said about the robustness of the data of phase 1, phase 2, I have not been doubting that at all. Now, if we just quickly look at the protocols or the systems that are being followed, before the vaccine gets approved, there are 3 phases, phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 and 2 of this particular vaccine has been conducted, the data has been put out or has been shared. Now, the phase 3 part of the trial is still ongoing. By the own admission of the ICMR chief and everybody involved, everybody says that there are still many volunteers to be recruited, or we don't have still completely done the recruitment process of the phase 3 trial even, and the data of phase 3 trial is not there yet to be analyzed in completion. Now, what does that mean? Now, phase 3 trial is very, very specific because it looks at the efficacy of the trial. It looks at how the vaccine has been able to prevent the disease, either occurrence of the disease or the severity of the disease in different population sets, in different age, gender, or even ethnic diversity. And then once we have that data, then we come up with clear-cut numbers, as you see from other vaccines, that there are clear-cut numbers. They can be anywhere. Efficacy can be anywhere from 50% to 90, 95%, as you see in other vaccines. WHO has openly said that more than 50% is very much acceptable for COVID vaccine. So in that light, we need to have those numbers very, very robustly out in the open, that these are the numbers, these are the groups where the efficacy has been shown, these are the different groups where the safety has been shown, and then the approval can be given. Now, my concern, another thing I could quickly add to it, sorry about that, is that in the statement it was mentioned that it's in public interest as an abundant precaution in clinical trial mode to have an option for vaccinations, and it can even be working against a mutant strain. These are very confusing statements from a scientific point of view. I can go further into it, but I have my concerns about it.
Okay, let's take it one by one. Dr. Sambit Patra, from Dr. Ella's press conference, we figured that there were 26,000 people who are supposed to be signed up for the phase 3 trials of Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. 24,000 volunteers have taken phase 1. He admitted they're having problems in getting volunteers for his trials. So far, 4,000 odd human beings have been administered the second dose. After about a month of the second dose being administered, we'll start figuring out whether adequate immunity is being built and whether the vaccine is actually working in the manner that it should. Please explain more in your capacity as a doctor, and come to the politics later, why you think it's okay for a vaccine to be granted emergency use approval even before we know how efficacious that vaccine is, Dr. Patra.
Rahul, first and foremost, I would like to make it clear at the very onset when you said that probably I would don the hat of a doctor more than the hat of a politician. I'm a pure politician over here. And as far as the expert knowledge of medical science and medical fraternity is concerned, for that I'm totally dependent on the expert views of the concerned communities in this field. Particularly the DCGI that you were talking about, the Director General of the Drug Control Director General. We depend upon the ICMR's viewpoint. We also depend upon the subject expert committee on COVID-19, and well, yes, the release of the Health Ministry. Because as a politician, I'm not into research of COVID-19 virus. I have complete faith on the expert committee, complete faith that the DCGI would have taken the decision and would have come to a conclusion decision only after going through what is most articulate. And let me also over here, bring to the notice as to what the ICMR DG, Mr. Balram Bhargav, had said to India Today TV only yesterday. And I quote, "The virus was isolated at the ICMR and was given to Bharat Biotech. They developed the vaccine after all the preclinical works, and clearly phase 1 and 2 trials have shown tremendous safety and immunogenicity of 98%, with none of the subjects getting COVID infection in phase 1 and phase 2 trials. And there are approximately 23,000 subjects in the third phase trial. The entire trial should be completed by 3 to 4 days. Approval has been given under clinical mode, which means these patients who will be given vaccine dose will be closely monitored, and the regulator will look at data more closely for both the vaccines." From that perspective, I think it has been a great step.
Just one second, Dr. Patra.
Rahul, I would like to conclude.
Dr. Patra, you're saying we should have faith. You know, you can have faith in religion, you can have faith in a godman, you can have faith in an astrologer, possibly even a tarot card reader. In science, you must have belief, and that belief must stem from data. At a time when the phase 3 trial itself hasn't been completed by the company's own admission, where the company chief executive himself doesn't know what the level of efficacy is, and phase 1 and phase 2 is much too small, hasn't been done over a larger sample of the population, aren't we rushing through this process? China and Russia are the only two other countries which have given permissions for emergency use of vaccines without waiting for efficacy data. Does that make you uncomfortable?
Not at all, Rahul, because I have complete belief or faith, whatever you say, on the expert committee which has looked into the affair. And in fact, I was quoting and saying that Mr. Bhargav speaks about 98% immunogenicity, which we were right now showing in the plate, which was displayed in front of us. 98% immunogenicity, and there has been no untoward effect as yet. Across the globe, there has been no untoward effect. And moreover, the health ministry also has come forward. And in fact, as far as Covaxin is concerned, Mr. Harshvardhan categorically has done away with the rumors and tweeted that EUA, that is the emergency use authorization for Covaxin, is differently conditional in clinical trial mode. This means that since these are unprecedented situations and we need to control the mortality rate at the earliest stage, that's why these are differently conditional. In a way, the clinical trial will be continuing, and every person.
But then why not just complete the clinical trial, Dr. Patra? Why not then just complete, if you're continuing with the vaccine in a clinical trial mode, just complete the clinical trial, sit back and assess the results, and then go ahead with full confidence and scientific backing.
Let me answer that. First and foremost, the ICMR categorically mentions that this should be complete in 3 to 4 days, number one.
Sir, one second, Dr. Patra, the interview you're quoting is an interview I did with Dr. Balram Bhargav last evening. When he says 3 to 4 days, he says 3 to 4 days to complete the first dose. We just heard from Dr. Ella. First dose, after which the second dose will be given a month later. After a month of the second dose, which means about 60 days later, we will start seeing what kind of immunity it creates, so we'll know what kind of efficacy it has. The interview you're quoting is an interview I did, but that means that we will know essentially for all practical purposes.
No, exactly.
That's why I told
an interview that has been, that's why I told the interview that has been done by India Today, in which the same person that you are quoting, Dr. Bhargav, talks about 98% immunogenicity in phase 1 and phase 2 and the continuing phase 3. These are emergency situations. And remember, most of the people are not going to receive the Covaxin. Covaxin comes to play only when there is a mutant strain, or in fact there is an extra load of, I would say, infection. Only then Covaxin comes into play.
So I'll come to the mutant strain in just a moment, but I want to build on what's your most compelling argument so far, and I want to go across to S. Srinivasan. Dr. Patra's argument is that in phase 1 and in phase 2, the people who are administered the vaccine showed that immunity was built up, that it has about a 98% response level, and therefore, on the basis of the data, they haven't seen phase 3, they accept that because the results aren't out, even the trial isn't completed, but they think that phase 1 and 2 has given adequate confidence to the top scientists in this expert committee to go ahead in an emergency condition grant approval. Why are you uncomfortable with that, Mr. Srinivasan?
Before coming here, I was just looking into the new clinical trial rules of March 2019. Whether I missed any trick in reading the new clinical trial rules based on which the DCG has given this approval. And I really could not find anywhere in it saying that efficacy data can be sacrificed, can be given a go-by to give approval for a drug. So there is no basis in law. Although there is enough scope in the clinical trial rules for accelerated development and accelerated approval, etc. But nowhere it says that approval can be given by giving efficacy data a go-by. And to say that immunogenicity and safety data are good enough, it is not correct, because immunogenicity does not automatically guarantee high efficacy.
One second. I want to park you there. Explain to me the difference between immunogenicity and efficacy. What is the difference and why is it of concern to you? And why is it that you're not convinced with Dr. Patra's argument about phase 1 and phase 2 being satisfactory? Ab tak theek hai, to aage bhi theek hoga, have faith.
No, first of all, phase 1 and phase 2, they have different objectives. Phase 1 is objective of whether the drug is basically safe on healthy people. And phase 2 is to say whether there is some kind of effectiveness on a small population. And to they have done actually trials only in 830 people, 800 plus people. And this is a small sample. But let us forget about the sample size, assuming statisticians have been consulted and so on. But safety does not guarantee efficacy. Safety means only safety. Immunogenicity means the antibodies generated. Antibodies generated does not, in the long run, is a predictor of high efficacy. There may be high immunogenicity, but nowhere it says high immunogenicity is a good indicator of a high efficacy. So this argument tends to rely on immunogenicity.
So immunogenicity is safety and efficacy is how effectively that vaccine works.
Yeah, basically whether it works for what it's supposed to work.
So let me go back to Dr. Patra, which is why I'm so glad we have Dr. Patra and no one else from the BJP today, because he understands these issues and can comment on them better than most politicians would, even though he sees himself largely as a politician on this broadcast. So basically, what which is on healthy individuals and from phase 2, which is on a very small sample, is that it is a safe vaccine. What we don't know is how efficient is this vaccine, and therefore, Dr. Patra, the concern is, and it's a very relevant concern in the minds of anybody who gets the vaccine shot, how effective is the vaccine that I'm taking? It's not just about being safe, but will it deliver the results? And at this moment, even the company doesn't know what their level of efficacy is.
See, there are 2 points. Number one, as far as the prime, I would say, the prime vaccine is concerned, in India, that would be Covishield, as the government has already reiterated. And secondly, the government says that only under emergency situation and in the mutant strain, after due consent, you'll have a complete form in front of you in which you would be informed about everything that might or that might not happen, including the efficacy, including the immunogenicity. You put your signature to it only in 2 cases, emergency situation or in the mutant strain, and then you move ahead with it. And the EUA, the emergency use authorization, is such that the whole thing with Covaxin is as if it were a clinical trial. Every patient who takes this vaccine would be clinically monitored and would be tracked.
No.
So to say that they would be left on their own would be absolutely wrong.
But no one is saying you leave them on your own. But if this is the question I want to welcome Dr. Sandeep Buddhiraja with. If this is an extension of an ongoing clinical trial, then why not just call it a clinical trial and speed up that trial as much as you can, so that you get the results as soon as possible, get the remaining samples out of the way, get people the shots, get the second dose as quickly as is scientifically feasible, and then grant approval. If you're saying it's an extension of the clinical trial, then why not just call it that? Dr. Buddhiraja, what are you making of the government's approach?
So Rahul, I like to here come in as a clinician, and in this respect, I actually will fully agree with what Sandeep Patra has to say here. And my reasons are as follows, and I'm just basing it on hardcore scientific facts as a clinician, how my outlook towards my patients or population at large would be. Now, in this entire issue, we are missing out that the large majority of population would still be given the Serum Institute vaccines at the Covishield. We are talking about Covaxin being given accelerated approvals under a lot of restrictions.
as would be appropriate for a clinical trial. But your question is also right. Why then not call it a clinical trial? My personal belief is that this particular vaccine, Covaxin, would be restricted and to be used only under exceptional circumstances and unprecedented environment, as has been said, that if there's an outbreak by a mutant strain.
No, but can I pause that 1 second? You're saying if there's a mutant strain, this vaccine works well. At this moment, you don't know how effectively it works on the mutant strain either. You don't know how it works per se, and you don't know how it works on the mutant strain. Yet somehow you are exuding confidence that jab mutant strain aayega, this will help you against that.
No, let me give a science behind this. Now, this is a Covaxin is a inactivated whole virion vaccine. That means all the antigens are represented. Now, in mutation, what happens is few proteins change. And that's why, you know, in Pfizer and all, where the spike protein is predominantly the vaccine component, there may be an issue. But in Covaxin, since you have an entire virus which is inactivated, and we know we have largest experience with inactivated vaccines as a humankind. And inactivated vaccines are safe. And in fact, phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials have amply shown the safety of vaccines. So I don't think we should talk about the safety of vaccine. That issue is rested. The big question being asked is the efficacy. Now, remember, the vaccines from China and Russia also have a precedence of not having an efficacy data when they were launched. And
no, but is that the country, one second, China and Russia are amongst the least transparent authoritarian regimes in the world. When it comes to scientific validity, thoroughness of our process, the independence of our regulatory authorities, are China and Russia the countries you want to be compared to, Dr. Buddhiraja?
No, but Rahul, these vaccines are available outside of China and Russia. Middle East, it's being used. A lot of other countries we know where these vaccines are being used, and they have produced their own local efficacy data, and this efficacy data from one country and another country also varies. Now, we need to remember, WHO has clearly said any vaccine which is more than 50% efficacious can be used to break the transmission and protection. The second fact is that even if it does not, to me as an individual, give 100% efficacy, but still, if I get the disease, it will be not severe disease, pneumonia will not be there, mortality will be cut down. And at this moment, in unprecedented times, I think cutting down the severity of illness and mortality is the prime importance, provided it's a safe vaccine. Efficacy is a secondary issue. Yes, it should be there, but in times like these, giving a restricted approval.
Okay, Dr. Aviral Vatsa, let's delve into the mutation in the UK and the confidence that Bharat Biotech has, as also Dr. Balram Bhargav of the ICMR, when I interviewed him, said the same thing, that this is a whole virus vaccine, it's an inactivated vaccine, so we don't know what happens to the Pfizers and the Modernas in the case of this UK mutant, which spreads more rapidly. But they hope that in the case of the inactivated vaccine of Bharat Biotech, it will do well against any kind of mutation. How do you respond to Dr. Buddhiraja?
I think, so the statement that the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccines, we don't know how they are going to react to the new mutant strain, that is absolutely correct. And that is correct on the basis that we don't have any data yet against those mutant strains. Although most of the scientists are not that concerned about it, because the mutations have been found in some parts of the spike protein, and what is expected is that these vaccines are effective against many more epitopes. Now, epitopes are different regions on those spike proteins where the antibodies are going to target, and hence they are expecting that efficacy might get affected, but it will still be effective against those new strains. Now, again, let's be very clear, let's be very mindful that nobody is claiming that although the Pfizer, the Moderna, or the Oxford, they have a clear-cut efficacy data, no one is claiming that they will be similar efficacy or exactly the same efficacy against the new strain. But how can we claim that against the new strain, we will have 100% efficacy for a vaccine for which we don't know the efficacy for the wild-type strain itself? Now, the argument that the biotech vaccine is based on the complete virion, which means that the complete virus has been inactivated, which is a traditional way of doing things. And I understand that the technology is old. We have tried it. I'm not doubting that at all. Now, if for example, the virus actually mutates, that means the virion is going to change. That means the virus covering the spike protein, everything around it is going to change to that level. The vaccines are not going to work. Now, I must add one more thing, that the mRNA vaccines have the beauty, the robustness to be updated a lot more quickly, in the sense that if there is a change, a mutation, a bigger mutation in these viruses, you sequence that change, you quickly make an mRNA, which is a lot quicker than inactivating the complete new virus, again generating a new vaccine, the traditional way of doing things. So to claim that it's based on a virion and then extrapolate to the fact that it will be effective against the new strain also is scientifically incorrect in my knowledge.
Okay, Dr. Patra, respond to that. Because when you don't know how it does against the primary strain which is currently present largely in India, how can we be so certain that against the new strain which has just about entered our country and is spreading havoc in the United Kingdom, this virus will do well? Respond to the points made by Dr. Aviral Vatsa.
See, first and foremost, Rahul, very respectfully, I would submit that remember that we are not supposed to know everything. I'm a politician, I'm a surgeon, I'm supposed to know about cholecystectomies and pancreatectomy. I'm not supposed to know about the spike proteins, etc., etc. But well, yes, as a responsible citizen, my buck has to stop somewhere. I have to have faith on certain group of people who have been designated by the government of this country, who have been elected by the people of this country, and who do their job arduously and with great deal of responsibility. I have faith in the ICMR. I believe Dr. Bhargav. I have faith in the DCGI. I have faith in the Director General of the DCGI. And they all have reiterated that since this is the particular way that the vaccine has been made, this Covaxin is for a particular use in emergency situations and it would be effective in a mutant strain. I'm not a scientist to comment on it, but I have complete faith on the scientist. As a politician, my humble submissions, we should try least to spread rumor mongering over here, because what certain politicians have done is, this is BJP's vaccine, why should I use
that? Which is now, once again, Dr. Patra, that wasn't my approach, which is why I didn't even call a single politician. Forget what the politician says. Of course, it's not BJP's vaccine, but at a time when we don't know, when the company itself and the drug regulator and the Medical Research Institute doesn't know how efficient that vaccine is, forget Akhilesh Yadav. He's immaterial in this conversation. No one knows how effective that vaccine is, and we've gone and given approval. The only other countries who took this punt, had the kind of quote-unquote faith that you're talking about, are China and Russia, which are infamous world over for lack of transparency in medical regulations.
Now, I would say, when we say that, well, Russia's vaccine has not been helpful, I've been hearing that Sputnik is being used in many of these Middle East countries. It's there all across, and these countries have performed their own efficacy safety data on Sputnik, and they have released that data. And astonishingly, I have not heard of a single article being published anywhere, the Lancet, etc., where they talk of any kind of side effects of most of the vaccines. Leave aside Indian vaccine, of any vaccine across the globe. I have not heard of any side effect of the Pfizer, Moderna, or any other vaccine.
Respond to this argument made by Sambit Patra that if Russia and China are cited as instances of what we shouldn't be doing, in those two instances, the vaccines that have been put out by the Chinese and the Russian authorities are being used in other countries. And forget what's happening inside China. We don't know what's happening behind the Great Wall, but we do know in other countries where it's being used, people are largely satisfied with the way the vaccination process has gone. S. Srinivasan.
Well, we really don't know whether they are satisfied, and this is all hearsay. I think in scientific issues, whether the vaccine is effective or not effective, efficacious or not efficacious, is decided by peer-level publications in journals like Lancet. And I haven't seen any papers. Probably Lancet has rejected all those papers from these countries because of poor writing or scientific reporting and so on. So I think we should not really take as our examples some countries where democracy is not really in place. And I think this whole issue is about transparency, democracy, and discussion by other experts. And nobody is rumor mongering here, because we are interested that our country produces a first-class vaccine, and then it's safe and it really works when it's supposed to work. And we do all that is required and not resort to something unprecedented in the annals of clinical trials, where a drug has been where a vaccine has been approved without phase 3 data. So I don't think we should, that should be our beacon, and guideline should be the best practices and not some wishy-washy practices of countries we don't know about and where there's no reportage in peer-level reviewed journals.
Dr. Patra, Srinivasan's argument that as a country we should strive for the highest scientific standards, not this chalta hai jugaad, bharosa karo, theek ho jayega, bas bhagwan ka naam lo, tika laga lo. Not that, but go by peer-reviewed medical journals.
No. Just a second. I would not even go by the term jugaad and chalta hai attitude for indigenous vaccine of our country. I would respect, but well, yes, I would respect this debate and discussion also. So that's why I would say that the channel should not use Sambit Patra versus Srinivasan. I'm not having a duel with Mr. Srinivasan. I'm only conversing with the great man over here as my co-panelist. I cannot challenge him on his knowledge. And that's why we are a beautiful country. Secondly, I would like to know from Dr. Srinivasan that whether Lancet has published any kind of efficacy, safety data of the Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield. I mean, if you can reply in yes or no, because I have not kept track of the Lancet recently.
Yes.
Has any been published?
They have. Which is where that 70.2% number comes from. So Oxford AstraZeneca did their trials, it got peer-reviewed and published. So, in fact, Dr. Aviral Vatsa is in the UK. Once again, let's just hear from him. He can shed some light on how the process was undertaken in the UK and the difference between what we've done and what the British health authorities have done. Dr. Aviral Vatsa.
Yeah. If I could just quickly also add to that, before saying that Dr. Patra said that, about the responsibility of a doctor, I just want to add that each and every doctor's responsibility is to look at the evidence in a critical way. No evidence should just go past by, taking any names or any labels. So having said that, it is actually each and every doctor's responsibility, because people, armed public, looks up to the doctors to give them the decision, is it safe, is it not safe? And it is our responsibility, I take it as my personal responsibility, to look critically at all data and not at the name. About the approval process, I would like to highlight, another thing I would like to highlight is I heard in the statement previously in the introduction that it is because it's an Indian company that is being targeted. I'm very sad to see that, because a lot of people have worked really, really hard on these vaccines. Science knows no borders. There are very clear-cut parameters, very clear-cut steps which anyone can go through, has to follow, and then the approval is given. For example, in UK, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was going further ahead, was thought to be the lead one, which will be approved the first. But UK approved the Pfizer one first because the data was in place, the data was clear enough to them, and the approval was done lot before the Oxford one was approved, which was a locally made vaccine. Because the process took that longer, it was beyond that, and the Pfizer vaccine was actually rolled out. It has already been given to many people, and now today the Oxford vaccine is being rolled out today as we speak. So what I would like to say is that we shouldn't go into the rhetoric of nationalism in this. We should stick to science, and the science demands and states that we have to be critical with any data. That is the very first step.
Okay, Dr. Patra, respond to that final argument that even in the United Kingdom, where Oxford was the Desi candidate, they got Pfizer rolled out first, which is the international MNC, because the Oxford trials were not completed, the data hadn't been peer reviewed, so the National Health Services and the UK authorities actually waited for the trials to be completed without getting caught in this Desi Videshi Atmanirbhar India versus a global vaccine jibe.
No one is getting into that. And since we are having an informed debate, I would say, quote unquote, unprecedented times are the most important phrase that are to be used by everyone. Remember, Dr. Aviral is absolutely right when he says that every doctor's duty, rather every scientist's duty, is a critical, I would say, inspection of any result that comes forth. And in this very COVID issue, we had seen that plasma therapy has been criticized, yet has been given worldwide. Remdesivir has been criticized, yet has been given worldwide. Steroid therapy should be given or should not be given, should be withheld, had been criticized, yet had been given worldwide. No, I understand. In treatment also, there has been critical acclaim as well as acceptance. Remember, when I say unprecedented times, the treatment modalities have not been finalized as yet. No one can say that 1, 2, 3, 4 other steps through which one should move in the treatment. We are still moving ahead with the treatment as we refine ourselves. In the vaccination also, either we go into an indefinite time loop and we lose patients every day, or we move with the best scientific approach that we have in our hand right now.
Srinivasan, respond to this. I'm out of time. Either we run the risk of waiting, delaying this process, more people get affected, more people could die, or we move with what we have in the hope that what we've seen in terms of evidence is strong enough to save lives?
No, where is the question of more people dying? Because in fact, death rates are coming down drastically in India. And then we have the real backup vaccine is serum vaccine as at present. So we have a vaccine which has been proved to be effective in UK, in Oxford, and AstraZeneca. And it has been given approval after due consideration by the same experts whom we are questioning. So I think it is not a question of nobody is going to die. And if they, by any kind of surmise of forecast in the next 3 months, I mean, one cannot really predict this. Maybe there will be upsurge, but the probability of upsurge seems to be very little, because considering the figures of Indian figures, it's all coming down. And we are, if we follow the straight and narrow path of third phase trial and efficacy trials being done, etc., we should be having the data by April or March, if not early. And then we would know. So I don't really see why this kind of term it has been used, that clinical trial, what is the term it is used? Clinical trial mode. This term is, I'm sorry, never come across in the
Okay, so I'm out of time. You've heard the naysayers, you've heard the believers. Ultimately, we must all believe in science. Scientists in the expert committee believe that there is good reason to grant emergency use authorization. I think also as consumers in the end, it's important to realize that the first vaccine that's being given out en masse is the Covishield vaccine, which has been clinically tested. There is efficacy data. You heard from Dr. Bharat at Bharat Biotech. He sounds confident, but we will wait to see the data, what happens, and hopefully before mass use of the Bharat Biotech vaccine starts, there will be strong clinical efficacy data to back that belief as well. Data plus belief is what we need to engineer and get people to start believing. And thank you very much for an illuminating debate which covered different sides of this very, very polarizing issue, an issue which is being debated widely in offices, in homes. Dr. Sambit Patra, S. Srinivasan from the All India Drug Action Network, Aviral Vatsa from Scotland, and Sandeep Buddhiraja from the Institute of Medical Science and Medicine. Thank you very much. I'm slipping into a break. I'll have more for you on the other side. Stay with us. Back in a moment.